Hi everyone, I'm Darren Roberts, Regional Agronomist with Winfield United in Western Iowa, and today I'm here with Dean Meckler, Crop Protection DSM in North Central and Northwest Iowa. And today we want to talk a little bit about adjuvant recommendations for post-herbicide applications in both corn and soybeans. So Dean, tell me at this point in the season, what type of questions are you getting related to this topic?
So I get a lot of questions, but here's a question I get every year. And this one's from a relatively new agronomy seller. And they're asking, how do I know what adjuvants and surfactants I should be adding to my post-emerge applications for both corn and soybeans?
Okay, so that's a very good question. So what kind of recommendations are you making?
So I have a base recommendation that I make for everything corn and soybeans other than Extend soybeans or Liberty corn or soybeans. And that recommendation starts with Class Act NG at a rate of 4 to 10 quarts per 100 gallons.
Okay. So Class Act NG is a liquid AMS-based water conditioner. In every 2.5 gallon jug, it has 8.5 pounds of AMS and 2 quarts of NIS, as well as corn sorb technology to help with leaf penetration. Okay.
So while I do have a number of customers that use 4 quarts per 100 under great growing conditions and weeds that are on label, my standard recommendation would be 5 quarts per 100 because that gives me a 0.25% of NIS. Per 100 gallons.
Okay, so that kind of forms the basis of the recommendation.
Right,
so
right.
What else are you recommending?
So the other part of my base recommendation is interlock at 2 to 4 ounces per acre.
Okay, so interlock is a drift and deposition aid. Okay, so it helps with reducing those driftable fines. It also helps with better canopy penetration of the droplets and deposition onto the leaf surface.
And if I'm looking at just deposition, 2 ounces has worked for a long time for a lot of people. But if I'm really trying to get better drift control, I want 3 or 4 ounces per acre.
Okay. Okay, so that kind of forms the basis of the recommendation, right?
And that's the only thing you need if you're spraying just glyphosate.
Okay. But if we think about a lot of our post applications that we're making, a lot of times we're recommending putting in a tank mix partner. So how would we modify our adjuvant recommendation if we have a tank mix partner in there?
Sure, almost all of the tank mix partners are calling for oil on their labels. And I begin that oil recommendation with Superb HC at 1 to 2 quarts per 100 gallons.
Okay, so Superb HC is a high surfactant crop oil concentrate. Dean had mentioned the use rate being 1 to 2 quarts per 100. And that kind of depends based on if we're using Class Act NG as our water conditioner. We'd mentioned before Class Act NG does have surfactant in with it. And so if we're using that, then we could probably run the Superb HC down at the 1 quart per 100 rate. If we're using spray grade AMS, we would probably keep this up at that 2 quart per 100 rate.
And I'd probably raise to the 2 quarts if I'm off label or if I have tough growing conditions.
Yep.
And then there are certain products, particularly the PPO products on soybeans. That would be products like FlexStar, Avalanche Ultra, Cobra, Ultra Blazer, that really work better with an MSO.
And some of the Kixor technology from BASF
Correct.
as well.
They really want an MSO in that tank mix too.
Okay. So you'd recommend Destiny HC?
Destiny HC or Strikelock are our 2 MSO products.
Okay. So Destiny HC is a high surfactant methylated seed oil. It is going to be a little bit hotter than Superb HC, so we'd recommend this for maybe weeds that are a little bit larger when we're spraying them and trying to heat it up and get a little better herbicide efficacy in that situation. Our rate recommendation is going to be the same as with Superb HC, dependent on if we're using Class Act NG as our water conditioner. So 1 to 2 quarts per 100 for Destiny HC.
And again, if we get off label on weed size and we get tougher growing conditions, I like to go to that 2 quarts per 100.
Yep.
You get 18-inch water hemp, 2 quarts per 100 works a whole lot better.
Yeah. So for those of you that are familiar with or have been using Destiny HC and Interlock in your programs in the past, one thing that you have as an option would be Strikelock. So Strikelock is a high surfactant MSO. It also has drift and deposition aid properties as well. So let's talk just briefly rate recommendations for Strikelock.
So again, if I'm on label with good growing conditions, 6 ounces per acre along with Class Act works very well. If I start getting off-label weeds, bigger weeds, tougher growing conditions, I'm going to go to 8 ounces per acre. And if I'm talking those great big weeds rescue treatment, I'm going to be at 10 or 12 ounces per acre.
Okay. So that's kind of our basic recommendations for post-herbicide applications in both corn and soybeans. In another segment, we'll touch a little bit more specifically related to adjuvant recommendations for Liberty and Extend acres.